Hello my friends, R1 here. I haven't spoken with you for a while, and that's because I've been very busy. This video is actually going to explain why, and it starts just after Thanksgiving. The weather obviously has turned colder, and I'm busy on the peak to the west of the sanctuary. I have a refining setup up there, and I'm melting down some metal into some ingots. Now, this was a bit stressful because a Giga had been seen on this peak earlier in the day, as well as the peak opposite the sanctuary over to the east. Of course, the sanctuary itself is right below me there in the center of those trees, hidden from view for the most part. The refining forges themselves are safely out of reach on top of the peak. However, the area where I mine is in a danger zone. It's right on the path that comes up the side of the mountain, and a Giga could have snuck up on me at any point in time. This would have inevitably resulted in the death of Clementine and myself, and quite probably Sikorsky here as well. As I wait for my refining jobs to finish, I decide it might not be a bad idea to get another bead on exactly where that Giganotosaurus is. I didn't relish the idea of it sneaking up right below me. So we went down the path up the side of the mountain. So far so good. And then below me and to the right, I spot him. Male Giganotosaurus, eating everything in its path. I have to say it was a little disconcerting, finding it so close to my location where I was distracted with my mining activities. Fortunately, he's on the side of the mountain away from the sanctuary, heading off to the west. Well, that's a plus. But I've noticed something recently. As the temperatures grow colder with the onset of fall and eventually going on into winter, prey has become more and more scarce here on the ARK. For something the size of a Giganotosaurus, well, they're an eating machine. And that means they're drawn lower and lower on the mountain slopes every day, closer and closer to my sanctuary. And to make matters worse, they're starting to group up. That's a mated pair. Two of them operating almost a stone's throw from my sanctuary. Perhaps it's mating season for the Gigas. I really don't know, but seeing them in numbers is really bad news. That really got me thinking. You see, my sanctuary doesn't have any what you would call defenses. It's got the cliffs around it that a Giganotosaurus could easily walk right over. And it has the trees that conceal it from sight. A determined Giga could push right through those trees if it were chasing prey. And one Giganotosaurus, let alone two, is more than enough to wipe out every animal that I have in the sanctuary. And my fences and structures as well. I literally have all of my eggs in one basket. Now, I'm a one-man operation, so metal is hard to come by in any quantity. So putting up metal defenses, the only thing that can stop a Giganotosaurus, well, that was pretty much out of the question. So I decided then and there the only thing to do was to go looking for an alternate site. Several possibilities presented themselves, but in the final analysis, only one site really fit the bill, having enough room for all of my animals and for future expansion, and was defensible enough that I could be reasonably certain the Giganotosauruses would never be a threat there. You see, Giganotosauruses can't swim very well, and they don't like water, so, yeah, you guessed it, the closest possible location for Site B was the Dead Island. One of the least hospitable places on the ARK above ground. The Dead Island is home to everything from raptor packs to T-Rexes. But still, I can handle a T-Rex. My animals can handle a T-Rex. But we can't handle a Giganotosaurus, so the search for a suitable location on Dead Island began. Of course, while I was there scouting, I did manage to find time to make a few new friends. This is Guanji. She put up a heck of a fight, but we finally came to an understanding. The struggle to capture her and the journey back to the sanctuary would make for an epic tale all on their own. She still bears the marks of the long swim across from the island. Don't be shy, Guanji. Go ahead and say hello to all your new friends. Interestingly, egg production from the dodos quadrupled right after that scene was shot. Before long, Guanji was exploring the confines of the compound and making all sorts of new friends, albeit with a few tense moments here and there. I think she'll make a fine addition to the animals contained in the sanctuary. And in case you're wondering why I named her Guanji, it's a nod to the old classic grade B sci-fi film, The Valley of Guanji. And if you haven't seen this film, I strongly suggest you track it down. It was made during the golden era of young James Franciscus and Ray Harryhausen effects. Cowboys versus dinosaurs. You just don't get much better than that. Now, don't be concerned that I was neglecting my normal duties around the compound while I was exploring for a suitable location for Site B. This little fellow was born during the height of that phase, as were these two cute, cuddly little saber-toothed cubs, born virtually back to back. I think we're going to name you Twinkle Toes. That seems appropriate. Make sure you get fed now, so grow up nice and healthy like your half-brother, whom I think we're going to call Death Smirk. Yeah, that'll work. Finding the time to care for these youngsters is certainly challenging, but bringing new life into the world is its own reward. Not to mention the fact that bringing up a whole new generation of adorable little death machines like this is crucial to making my plans for Site B a success. For the most part, my animal companions pitched in to help me at every turn. But there's always got to be one or two jokers in the mix, doesn't there? Frankenstein, how did you even get into that? Better question, how am I going to get you out? I think I'm going to have Guanji come over and have a little discussion with you about dedication and work ethic. Well, I can't blame Frankenstein and a couple of the others for wanting to blow off a little steam. This is a monumental task that we're undertaking out on the island. A long, slow, grueling construction project that was going to take me the better part of 2 weeks to complete. It would have gotten done a lot faster than that, but it went through a couple of redesigns before I found a design that would actually work and achieve the purposes that I needed to achieve. And we also had an awful lot of interruptions, as you can well imagine. Not only was there an immense amount of heavy labor gathering and hauling building materials, but since I also wanted Site B to provide a suitable habitat for semi-aquatic residents as well, a lot of this work had to be done underwater, fighting vicious riptides and whirlpools. Poor Cassie nearly drowned before I could pull her to safety. But we kept at it, night and day. And eventually, the first iteration of Site B began to take shape almost before our eyes. Visionary in concept and bold in execution, Site B was to encompass land and sea in a nearly impenetrable wall of stone. All except for that cliff face over there, which I left free of obstruction for a very specific purpose. Initially, we just went one level high, one wall section or rails equal to that, but it proved to be insufficient. Not to keep animals out. That wasn't my primary concern, to be perfectly honest. My primary concern and goal was to keep all of the animals in, and one species in particular was very adept at escaping from an enclosure such as this. and it's not the one that you might think. Sarcos are immensely powerful creatures capable of extreme bursts of speed in the water, and they could develop such velocity that they could actually torpedo themselves over the top of the walls in the aquatic sections. This forced me to bring everything up an additional level in height and to reinforce certain key areas of the wall. But eventually, we got it. And now, try as they might, they can't build up enough velocity to clear the top. Not that they don't keep trying. Good effort there, Becca, but no cigar for you today. You might almost think they're more trouble than they're worth, but I have found the presence of the Sarcos invaluable for perimeter security. The Sarcos provide the muscle, the turtles provide the heavy armor, and we've needed that sort of security a great deal. We had constant incursions by the local wildlife, carnos showing up at the most inopportune moments. And I wasn't always free to deal with the threat. And of course, no matter how high I build these walls, I'll never be able to keep out the Argentavis that infest this island. But fortunately, I don't have to worry about that. Any Argents, or other creatures for that matter, are swiftly dealt with and provide a pleasant afternoon snack for my resident carnivores. You see, Site B needs to be as self-sufficient as possible, and that's part of why this design has taken shape as it has. I want the indigenous carnivores to try and get in, and hopefully, occasionally succeed. You see, my creatures are only really at risk if they get separated and overwhelmed. But if it's one carnivore at a time, slipping in over a wall or over that cliff that I left open, well then my crew can handle them easily, and all of my carnivorous friends are well fed, without my having to lift a finger. All I need to do is make sure I gather some berries once in a while for the herbivores, and all is well in paradise. Of course, when it is feeding time, if none of the locals have managed to make it over the wall, I'm not above lending a helping hand to give them their heart's desire, a taste of what it's like to be a hostile creature inside my animal sanctuary. Dinner is served, boys. Raptor Tartare is on the menu tonight. From the beginning, my plan has been for Site A, the compound at Hidden Lake, to serve as my primary genetic testing ground to raise a variety of interesting and powerful creatures. Site B, on the other hand, is going to be devoted to teaching them how to survive and work as a highly efficient combat team. You see, these creatures can't survive on their own. They've already experienced extinction once. The only way they're going to survive is if they learn to work together. And there is no better place on the ARK than this island to enhance their survival skills. And if Site A ever does succumb to the Giga threat, and all of my breeding facilities are destroyed, I'll have a backup plan here, with plenty of fine specimens, all ready to begin again. Now, this was the acid test of my fortifications. Are they sufficient to keep out a pair of hunting T-Rexes? Apparently so. And the beauty of this setup is, even if they had managed to do any significant damage, they would have run into the full force of every animal in the compound and would have been made short work of, providing my animal friends with invaluable combat experience and a tasty treat as well. Catch you later, boys. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Ranger 1, isn't this a bit of an overreaction to seeing a couple of gigas on a mountain over your shoulder? Well, before we knew it, winter was full upon us. Overnight, Site A was turned into a crystal fairyland of ice and snow. It was gorgeous to behold, but I also knew what that meant. Winter here in the ARK may be beautiful indeed, but it also means that my problems up on those mountain peaks was only going to get worse, exponentially worse. So I immediately decided to embark upon an expedition. I felt that I should go to the peak that is directly to the north of my compound. It's the smallest of the three, and it's the one where gigas are least often seen. I wanted to see if my theory was going to bear fruit, if my fears were justified. And as is so often the case, I was proven to be absolutely correct. Under the cover of darkness, I went to that peak, and this is what I found. Gigas everywhere, swarming all over the low mountain peak. Literally, just a short walk for them down a relatively gentle slope directly into my sanctuary. It was a chilling sight, and not one that I will soon forget. Phase 1 of Site B's construction had completed just in the nick of time. This large concentration of gigas was very quickly going to deplete the local food supply, forcing them to wander further and further afield to fill their bellies and placing my sanctuary, my Site A, at ever greater risk. Usually I consider myself fortunate to be blessed with such remarkable gifts of foresight and wisdom, but there are times when it really sucks to be right. So I must accelerate my plans and recruit more powerful creatures into my breeding program. Like this fine young female Quetzal up ahead. And then start Phase 2 of my master plan for Site B. Come to think of it, since I'm going to have multiple sites in play, I'm also going to have to formalize a naming convention for them. But we'll cover all that in the next episode, because right now, I'm off to go grab a scorpion and tame a companion for faithful Sikorsky here. If you're curious as to how this will all turn out, be sure to give me a thumbs up and remember to subscribe. Until I see you again, good hunting. Thanks for watching. I hope you were entertained. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you. And I'll see you next time.